Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are on the map Volksrad playing as the Brettonians against the Empire. And actually I shouldn't have even said Empire there. It's Mid-Inland. How could I be mistaken? But you can see with their fancy blue colors instead of the usual red and white, which I guess are Reichland colors. No, they're not. That's not even like general Empire colors. But regardless, you can see my opponent does have the Templar Luminarch here. It's going to be a pretty fun match. For my army, pretty conventional. I think this is probably the best way to deal with Empire. Honestly, you guys have seen this build before. Double peasant bowmen, one with pox, one with fire, triple men at arms with shields, peasants in the front. Single unit of Beast Slayer's Bastion in the back, providing some AP anti-large, which I think is good if you need that extra bit of oomph. Fae with Grail Guardians, of course with her usual assortment, Earthblood, Regrowth, Arcane Conduit, Favor, Chalice, Mist, of course, and Life Bloom. I see a lot of people actually complaining about the Fae, saying that her Mist is still overpowered. I actually don't really think the Mist is that much of a problem. I think the big part of the problem is that I think a lot of people don't anticipate the Fae Enchantress, but it's been something I've been seeing more and more as people complaining about the Mist, so we might be getting a nerf through that again. We'll see. Outside of that, on the flank, Companions of Quenellus and Grail Knights, double Grail Knights on the other end, so I do think the Companions of Quenellus are pretty good in this, Quenelles are really good in this matchup, simply because of the fact that they give you good AP. It lets you crush Demigryph Knights with Halberds a little faster, actually. For my opponent's build, very interesting. So we're going to be going through a very unconventional Empire build. Very shooting heavy. You can see 2 free company, probably Vanguard just a tiny bit to give them a little bit of an edge here in the woods. They are backed by single unit Demigryph Knights with Halberds, Outriders, and Outrider Grenade Launchers. In the center here, my opponent has triple swordsmen, 2 crossbows, a General of the Empire, which is a very surprising pick. You almost never see this guy, but he does have he's dirt cheap. He does have stand your ground. He's got Foe Seeker. He's got Hold the Line. The Templar Luminarch, as we already mentioned, which is actually not very good against the Fae Enchantress because it does magic damage, and of course it counts the missile. So the Fae Enchantress with her, I do believe it's 60% magic resist and 15% missile resist, is only going to take 25% damage from a Luminarch. That said, against Grail Knights, it is a brutal tool and it can do a lot of damage. And my opponent has a mirror cav set up on the other flank with 2 Outriders, Outrider Grenade Launcher, and then Demigryph Knights with Halberds. So a very interesting composition. I personally don't think it's that great of a composition. I think it's a little too heavy on shooting. If you want to go this heavy on cavalry, it's not necessarily a bad idea, but definitely bring a little more melee. I think this is too much free company. You could have gotten more spears there, but we'll definitely see how things play out in practice. I actually think Outriders are a pretty good choice against Brettonia, because Demigryphs can hold for a while, and you can get a lot of value out of Outriders. Regardless, my opponent here does tee off. I'm not even sure what he was aiming at, probably the Grail Guardians, but it does absolutely, the shot there does absolutely nothing. You can see the little bolt of light sailing off to the edge of the map, where oddly enough does fall to the ground. On the periphery, my opponent is harrying my Grail Knights with some Outrider fire, so obviously I don't want to be getting shot up by that. But over here, I'm going to be pushing my Grail Guardians forward. You can see the Templar Luminarch here, pushing to the side, and oddly enough, sort of fires a bolt to the left. I don't know. Is it supposed to be able to fire on the move? I don't know if it is. But my opponent is hiding it here behind the rock, and this is actually going to be a pretty brutal sight in a few seconds here. You can see my men-at-arms here pushing forward, and they are about to take a whole volley of grenade launcher fire. You can see just how much damage that's doing. But unfortunately for my opponent, that's not going to be that great. Over here I do catch the Demigryph Knights with Halberds with the Grail Knights and the Companions of Quenelles. These guys are not going to last for very long despite the Outrider support. Outriders with grenade launchers, even against Blob Cav, are not going to do too much. Over here my opponent does snag my Grail Guardians, and you can see they're down to 45 models, and they get hit by the Templar Luminarch there, but it's still not enough damage really. And you can see we're just pushing forward. Now my opponent gets a nice side charge here with the Demigryph Knights with Halberds. They would tear up Grail Guardians pretty decisively, but I do have the Beast Slayers of Bastion in there who will dive in and provide support, and these guys are not going to like their day at all. In the meantime, the Archery Squad is gunning down the Outriders, and you can see my Grail Knights here pouring over the top here, chasing after my opponent's backline, applying pressure. And my opponent's just getting hit from all sides. He's trying to snipe away with the Templar Luminarch, getting blocked because he's trying to use it too cautiously, in my opinion. You can see I did cast Favor of the Fae and Earthblood on these guys just to make them a little more competent. And you can see the swordsman here about to be hit by a meaty sort of meteor. And you can see these guys just completely demolished. They only lost 1 model, but they lost about half their HP instantly. And you can see now my arrow fire is going to start pouring in on the crossbows. And in the backline, the Demigryphs finally did rout. to the combined might of the companions as well as the Grail Knights. You can see that tag team combo really working well, running those guys down and forcing off these Outriders, which is really bad for my opponent, who at this point is just getting oversaturated. His grenade launcher fire in the back, wow, I clicked the wrong button there, but his grenade launcher fire here is actually wrecking his own free company. You can see rather than trying to chase them down or apply too much pressure, I simply pack my Grail Guardians up and go for the backline rush. My opponent's Demigryph Knights with Halberds here getting mucked up by the Beast Slayers, really not where they want to be. You can see they are doing some damage. The Beast Slayers are obviously not sort of elite halberds. They're elite by Brettonian standards, but that means very little. My opponent trying to force path through, trying to get after my archers. These guys are just taking such a beating. And in the backline, in the meantime, things are going very badly. Temple of Luminarch getting surrounded by Grail Knights. You can see, of course, with its terrible melee stats, it is not going to last well at all. My opponent does actually order it to hold its ground there and fire. Not entirely sure what. You can see it does almost nothing to the Fan Enchantress, though. In the backline, crossbows and swords getting overrun by knights. At this point, there's just too much cavalry for my opponent. Over here, these knights actually ran down the Demigryphs. A bit of an overkill there, but what can you do? I wasn't paying enough attention there. And now, end game for these swordsmen, and as they completely get overrun, and you can see just essentially they're just unraveled with this much cavalry. My opponent's build just got overwhelmed. These heavy cav-heavy builds are just so powerful for Brettonia, and with these swordsmen getting mopped up, my opponent's essentially just left the General of the Empire here, who's in the midst of his fleeing troops, getting jabbed at by Grail Knights, and you can see the Fan Enchantress here pursuing the Templar Luminarch, hitting it in the rear with her sort of explosive magic there. You can see she's actually mortis engineering it down, and the poor guy's just running away, and he is not going to last very long, and it explodes. You can see she just vaporized the whole Luminarch there. You can see all that's left of the horses and the light mages. So, pretty brutal stuff. You can see the archers here teeing off my Outriders. I think my opponent essentially forgot about it. He was trying to micro over here, and essentially just forgot about these units that I'd zoned off. And unfortunately, at this point, it's just too late. Too little, too late. Even if he does try to close into range against my archers, I can always just pull the knights in against them. Too little ammo, and the army is going to shatter to army losses. With a pretty healthy win for Brettonia. I think no, I'm assuming to show this because my opponent had a pretty phasey build, and I thought it was pretty funny to see a Temple of Luminarch. I think something, and I've been seeing this a lot from Empire players, they try to bring these sorts of hybrid compositions, different stuff. They try all sorts of gamekeep builds, but I think that, in my experience, the best way for Empire to counter Brettonia is to fight them at their own game. Brettonia is always going to invest in a good chunk of cavalry. It's basically guaranteed. They're probably going to bring the Fan Enchantress. Otherwise, they're going to bring Lewin. Regardless, they're probably going to invest very heavily in cav. You're probably going to see 3-4 units of cavalry in most games you do against them as Empire. Bring Demigryph Knights. You can bring a lot of Demigryph Knights with halberds. 2 is not enough. Bring 4, honestly. And you can say, that's really expensive, then what will my front line look like? Well, your front line's going to be weak, but Brettonian infantry sucks. They can bring a lot of foot squires, but foot squires aren't going to do well against cavalry. If they bring pole arms, you just bring a few essentially just bring a few great swords, bring a few spears, bring a handful of crossbows, bring a caster and say Karl Franz on a horse, and you've essentially got for caster I'd say Lore of Light just to isolate enemy cavalry, and you've essentially got your comp. You've got a decent enough Empire comp to take on almost anything Brettonia can throw at you. If they go in, they'd have to go like super pole arm heavy. Even then, they can only bring 6 pole arms to the field. Otherwise, your cavalry is just going to run amok. You'll probably get fear and terror outs, and it's going to be game over essentially for the Brettonians. So I think I can really quickly try, but yeah, I think that's probably the way to go. Is just go very cav heavy, and this was a cool build, cool idea. I don't think outright, if you want to go, I often ran a all cav build against Brettonia, which is actually really effective because Brettonia doesn't have the tools to deal with it, or does, but not many of them. And Outriders grenade launchers are great in there. They really mess up these men at arms. They really mess up the cheap Brettonian infantry like super efficiently. But if they don't have support for them, if you're not able to defend them, it's a disaster in the making. So really, what I would have, but regardless, good game to my opponent Samheim here, or Samheim. I had a lot of fun, and it was funny to see the Temple of Luminarch being used against Brettonia. I don't think it's the most competitive pick against Brettonia, to be quite honest, but it was fun to see. Mostly just wanted to say, just sort of take this moment, take this video to discuss just what Empire can do to counteract Brettonia, and sort of mention some of what I think are good counters, because I do see a lot of Empire players sort of doing this matchup, in my opinion, wrong, and usually I'm able to beat them because of it. So it's something I figured might be useful, might be something you guys would like to learn about. Regardless, I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. I do hope you, if you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe below if you haven't already. If you have any comments, any criticism, anything like that, be sure to share them down in the comments section. I will respond as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.